everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the MMF Films podcast. We have a very exciting episode for you guys today. Nick, what are we going to be talking about?
We're talking about the two live-action Scooby-Doo movies from the early 2000s, directed by Raja Gosnell, written by James Gunn, who went on to make Guardians of the Galaxy. He's going to make Superman. So, both these movies, for me, are really important in my childhood. They're still important to me now. I still love them to this day. I think, no exaggeration to say the same for you, yeah?
100%. We talked about last time how Willy Wonka was in my DVD rotation as a kid. It was something I always watched, pretty frequently. I would say the same thing for Scooby-Doo 1 and 2. Constantly part of my rotation, coming home from school, would throw that bad boy on. No complaints. Great movies.
For sure. I remember for the first movie, I would always watch it on VHS. We had the VHS. It's all like torn up, and it was one of those paper kind of covers that we had for that one. For the second movie, I would always watch that in my grandparents' car. We would be like driving like wherever to a diner or to like Hershey Park or wherever, and we'd put it on in the car. It was like a pirated copy too. It was like a gray disc with Scooby-Doo 2 written on it in marker. I was like, what's going on with this? I don't understand. Why does it look like this? But yeah, that's how I always watch Scooby-Doo 2, is in the car.
You wouldn't steal a car. You wouldn't steal a CD.
Yeah.
Pirating is stealing. You remember that commercial, right?
I do, yeah.
Okay, anyway, moving on. I had a similar memory to watching movies in the car. We had a portable DVD player,
again.
And my sister would always sit in the middle of me and my other sister, and we'd have a web of headphones that we would all put on, with adapters and things. And we would watch whatever movie, ranging from the Scooby-Doos to the Harry Potters, etc. So I could totally relate with you with that story. Before we actually dive into the movies, I just want to say I love your background, Scooby-Doo in the background, Spider-Man. What's the other poster on the back of your back left there? I can't tell.
It's more Matthew Lillard representation with a Scream.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Good old
Oh,
Shaggy
yeah, a little
Rogers.
woozy here, man.
You can
My
see
background's
a little bit
so
of...
boring.
Yeah.
I'm going to fix that soon. I'm going to get this hung up on the wall. Aaron Judge, Yankees represent. I also think you'll like the second one a little bit more. Tony Soprano with the Ducks.
Oh.
Isn't that awesome? Yeah.
Love
My
it.
wall won't be boring for
Those
forever.
fucking Ducks again.
Just real quick, before we get back onto Scooby-Doo, I just want to say one quick thing. Thank you to everyone who's been watching our podcast so far and liking, commenting, interacting, following our pages. We really appreciate it. I've noticed a lot of friends and family and new followers as well across our platforms, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So just want to say I appreciate you all coming along for this journey with us, and I can't wait to keep going and keep growing and just see where the podcast takes us. So we appreciate you, and that's all I have to say for now. So back to Scooby-Doo, Nick.
So before we get started, we just I want to say we both love these movies. We both think very highly of them, but we're going to pit them against each other. We want to see what's the better Scooby-Doo movie, because there can only be one true greatest Scooby-Doo movie of all time.
Nick has defined the definitive scale to rank a Scooby-Doo movie with 5 different categories. What are the categories, Nick?
We have a few different trademarks of every Scooby-Doo episode, every Scooby-Doo movie. And those 5 I've determined are a sense of humor. A music chase scene is in every Scooby-Doo property that I've seen. Of course, the monster. And we have suspects and supporting characters. They always meet new characters along every adventure. The Hex Girls, And then, of course, the mystery overall. We're going to look at every aspect in these 2 movies and see which one best in each category. And that'll be the best Scooby-Doo movie of the 2. So before we talk about the live-action movies, we should talk about the cartoons, because they both sort of serve as like sequels to the cartoons in different ways. When I was a kid, I always watched the original series, which I have playing behind me right now. I think it's Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? I had a VHS called Scooby-Doo's Greatest Mysteries, and had 4 episodes on it. The fan voted 4 best episodes. My favorite one was always Jeepers, It's the Creeper. I'm obsessed with that. I watch that probably like a couple times a year. It's so funny, so good.
That's awesome. My experience, I definitely watched the original show on Cartoon Network. I might have even had the same VHS tape that you had. I recognize the Scooby-Doo in the Sherlock Holmes costume. I feel like I might have had that. As well, obviously, what's new, Scooby-Doo? We're coming after you. We're gonna solve that mystery. Was on TV when we were younger, so I definitely watched that. Simple Plan still plays that to this day. Fun fact, I've seen them play it live.
Their biggest draw.
Not, yeah, I guess. Never mind. We'll just go on. So, what else was I gonna say? Of course, the show where they were all kids, the Scrappy show. I remember that where they were all babies. Do you remember that one? That was kind of weird.
Oh my god, pup named Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, that one was a weird iteration. There's so many different iterations of the show, but that one was a little weird.
That was the sick day show. When I'm sick from school and I'm staying home, a pup named Scooby-Doo is just on constantly. And I'm like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah, I agree. I also love the movies. I remember during the summer watching the Shaggy standalone movies. He always had a red shirt in those for some reason. He wasn't allowed to wear a green shirt, but Scrappy was in those too. Those are interesting. But none of the other cast was. It was just Shaggy standalone with Scooby.
Yeah, Scooby went through a lot of iterations during a few periods. A lot of the executives were like, all right, Scooby-Doo's falling out of popularity, so they got rid of Fred, they got rid of Velma, they got rid of Daphne for a little bit too. And then they introduced Scrappy. He's sort of got all the traits of Fred and Velma just implanted in him into this annoying little dog character. So that's a big reason people don't like Scrappy, is because they got rid of Fred and Velma to put him in there. And we'll talk more about Scrappy when we get to the first movie, because the hatred of Scrappy kind of plays into what happens in that movie.
He plays a major role. Some other cartoon movies that I remember watching consistently was the Hawaiian one. I forget what that one was called. Maybe it was Aloha Scooby-Doo. Zombie Island was
Aloha
awesome.
Scooby-Doo.
Zombie Island was scary, man. The monsters were actually real in that one. There was no mask. I'll never forget that moment. They tried pulling the mask off, and it was a real zombie head.
That was the first one where they did that, I think.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a huge moment. Also, Cyber Chase is a favorite of mine. They go into the video game. And I rewatched that with Katie recently, and there's actually a mistake in the movie. There's like an animation mistake where at one point either Velma's voice comes out of Daphne's mouth or vice versa. Daphne's voice comes out of Velma's mouth. And I know what scene it is too. It's on the moon. When they go to the moon level and they got to get the Scooby snacks. But I'll send you a link to that if I find it on YouTube. I thought that was pretty cool when I saw that.
That's interesting. I did not know about that. So before we talk about the first movie, we kind of have to talk about its production, because it kind of had a bit of a roller coaster to getting made. And it adds a lot of context to what we see in the movie. But basically, it was supposed to be a little edgier, not as kid-friendly. It was going to be a little more edgy take on Scooby-Doo. But James Gunn has said this on Twitter. It wasn't supposed to be R-rated, but nonetheless, it got an R rating originally from the MPAA. And the studio panicked and said, no, fuck this. And so they cut it to shit, removed a lot of the more racy adult content, and you kind of see that in the movie. It feels a little cut up. There's just weird characters that are unnamed. There's like a character Velma meets, and she talks to a lot, and he's unnamed in the movie. He's credited as Velma's friend. He has no name. There's weird moments that happen. There's weird moments that happen, like, that are unexplained. Like, they kind of skip over like certain plot points, but it's still overall a good movie, but it adds a lot of context to why it is the way it is.
Bro, I was in the latest Scooby-Doo movie. Oh yeah? Who did you play? Velma's friend.
He was supposed to be like you remember they like hug at the end?
He was supposed to be like a love interest, right?
Yeah, so originally James Gunn also said he wrote Velma as a lesbian in the movie, and Warner Brothers was like, no, cut that out. And so that was completely dropped, and then this new character was put in to be her love interest, and they didn't even give him a name.
That's great.
I'm sure he got paid well. There's also you can find a lot of deleted scenes from the movie too. There's one where Daphne's like learning because she keeps talking throughout the movie about her martial arts training. You see her kind of with like a Kill Bill like master, like as she's like doing like all these martial arts moves.
Daphne?
Which I think that's Daphne, yeah.
Dude, they should have kept that in because it really makes no sense how she just beats the shit out of that wrestler later on.
It works better as a reveal because she keeps saying, I've transformed my body into a weapon, and then for the rest of the movie, it kind of undercuts everything she says. She's still classic Daphne, getting into traps and trouble. And then when she fights that wrestler, she reveals that she actually can do it, and she beats the shit out of him.
That's my girlfriend's favorite scene. She always like, oh, can we watch that part?
She skips to that part?
Yeah. No, we don't skip to it. But she's always like, when I was a kid, this was my favorite part.
There's other deleted scenes like where Velma's like drunk and like singing like at the bar, like before all the monsters attack. That scene.
Dude, I would have loved that. Why'd they take that out?
Time, I don't know. Maybe it was. I haven't actually watched it in a while, but maybe it was a little too adult. I don't know. I'm not too sure.
Dude, what's with the early 2000s movies and just shoehorning a wrestling scene into everything? You know, I'm here for it, but Shrek, Shrek did it. Scooby-Doo did it. Is there another example that I'm not thinking of? Like, there definitely is. I feel like every major, like, adventure movie. Spider-Man, well, that was from the comic books, but it's still cool. There's always, like, a wrestling scene. It was basically the biggest thing on television back then, so they're like, how can we get that audience in the theater? I'll put a wrestling scene in it. Would you agree?
Hey, wrestling's exciting. That's why it works well. It's a dramatic performance. It works well for the climax of your Scooby-Doo movie.
Yeah, true. It just feels out of place for Scooby-Doo. It worked. It definitely worked, but it just feels super, like, random.
You say it's out of place, but there have actually been 2 Scooby-Doo WWE collaborations, so you're wrong.
This predates that, though.
They were setting the seeds. They were planting the seeds for what was to come.
They were laying the seed.
But that's interesting what you said about the early 2000s, because this movie feels like an early 2000s time capsule in a weird way. With the second movie, they take a drastically different turn. They try and make it like a classic Scooby-Doo episode. It feels like if you just told someone make a Scooby-Doo movie from scratch today, they might make the second movie. You can't make the first movie today because it just people look different back then. They're like dressed weird. Their hair's like done up in all these weird like pointy spikes, and it's like, what is going on here? Is that
dude? It's American Pie Scooby-Doo. It's American Pie Scooby-Doo. From like moment 0 of the movie, they're like, I don't want to grow up. Whoa! It's so 2002 or whatever the fuck it came out.
What an awesome plane! They had like a tiki bar on it.
Oh yeah, and they disguised Scooby by putting him in like a old lady's hat.
That's another great thing is they don't shy away from the cartoony aspects. They're like, yeah, Scooby-Doo always wears a disguise to get in somewhere, so he's gonna dress like an old woman to get on the plane.
Yeah, I like how they do that again in the second movie. We'll get to that later.
The movie starts by like splitting up the gang right out the gate. They're like, okay, we're gonna take this in a different direction than most Scooby-Doo movies, so they all split up and they're all brought back together through circumstance. They're all invited to Spooky Island, and Spooky Island is this movie's like strongest element because this place is freaking awesome. I think it's the biggest thing why people like this movie. I'm always seeing tweets where people are like, I want to go to Spooky Island. I wish Spooky Island was real because it feels like an actual amusement park island. It feels so alive and like real.
Maybe it will be a real thing one day. You know, the generation that grew up watching it is starting to get money. You never know.
The Universal in Australia actually has like the cart ride that like they all go to that spooky castle.
No way.
Yeah.
What country is it in?
Australia.
Dude,
you can see like
book a flight.
Ride-throughs.
I also like the random characters in the movie. A really memorable character for me is the guy with dreadlocks in the shack.
Oh, the voodoo
and he has
doctor.
like the chicken. Yeah, the voodoo guy. I love that guy. He was hilarious. He's arguing with Daphne.
Does he live there?
I don't know. I just remember him saying, "Don't go in that castle," and then the first thing they do is go in the castle.
Oh, of course they do. You got to go to the spooky castle.
Exactly.
But yeah, there's a great cast of characters in this one. The first guy they meet is Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean himself, as
yes,
what's his name, Mr. Montevarius, something like that. And he's kind of the main suspect right out the gate because he invited them all there, and he's just the most prominent character that they run into. But then there's also I don't remember his name, but he had the tattoo like on his head, and he was like,
oh
doing
yeah,
the whole,
that guy
show. And then he introduced the wrestler guy. They're like best friends or something.
I do like the aesthetic of the movie a lot. A lot of the characters are very interesting to look at. All the minions, like with the skull masks on, are very cool.
Oh yeah, there's so many like great costumes. They like play around. This movie has great production design. There's a lot of great sets, a lot of great costumes. Those guys at the end when they're in the cave, those guys have weird looking masks on too.
Yeah, I love that. The only thing that I'm not the biggest fan of probably is the main monsters, like those purple CGI dog guys. They didn't age that well. I didn't even think they looked that good back then, to be honest. And obviously a Scooby-Doo movie, you're looking for characters you recognize, and they didn't do any of the major villains. They kind of just did those guys. I don't know. I wasn't a fan of them. It's the only thing I'd really knock about the movie. I would have preferred some more interesting kind of monster to be the main villain, or to be one of the villains at least.
Yeah, they don't. I think their biggest flaw is they really don't look good at all. You know, because they're constantly just lit the same way. Like you remember when Scooby's in the middle of the forest and he's looking for cheeseburgers, and they're all just very clearly visible. And it's the middle of the night, and it's like you got to add some lighting to make this look more realistic because they're just like these brightly lit characters throughout the entire movie. They don't look different at all. They don't fit in with the environment they're in. But have you ever seen those clips of Matthew Lillard acting alongside nothing? Like he's just like when he's fighting Scooby-Doo, he's literally just spinning in a circle, pretending to argue with dead air. It's a testament to his performance and how good he is. The entire cat, that's actually, I said Spooky Island is this movie's biggest asset. It's actually the casting, because these four as these characters are perfect in every way. Everyone came to work and like nailed it.
Fred, fantastic. Daphne,
Freddie Prinze
fantastic.
Jr. They didn't get any slouches either. These guys are all big, hot rising stars at this period, and they all were like perfectly cast. Linda Cardellini as Velma is phenomenal. She like does the voice perfectly. She looks the part so well.
I love that. She was fantastic too. And then, of course, Matthew Lillard as Shaggy was so good that he became the definitive voice of Shaggy for like 15 years.
Matthew Lillard was basically born to play Shaggy. You watch his other movies, and he just has these like you can just hear it in his voice. Like he's just got that like kind of goofy, stonerish like tone to him, and it's just like
and
he was
Scream
just,
too.
That's why he's on this earth.
Well, not Scream
SLC
2,
Punk.
but Scream as well.
Well, he is in Scream 2. He shows up in the background for a little bit.
That doesn't count. It's not the same character.
It is.
He looks like SLC
back,
Punk.
baby.
He has like the SLC Punk vibes going in that shot.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, I can't argue that the cast is phenomenal. I definitely had a crush on Velma when I was a kid.
Really? In this movie or the second
hot.
movie?
Probably the second one, you know. But I've heard both boys and girls say they discovered that they like women after seeing Velma in the leather outfit in the second Scooby-Doo movie.
For sure. This is like the hottest cast that's ever existed in anything ever.
All right, let's move on from that topic.
So another character they meet is Ela Fisher as Mary Jane, which, like, as a kid, I just thought Mary Jane was, like, the most popular name ever because it was in this. It was in Spider-Man.
And Spider-Man.
I didn't get the... I didn't get the weed joke behind it. Like Shaggy's like, that's like my favorite name. And she sort of serves as a suspect for a little bit too, because she's just getting real close to Shaggy, and Scooby's getting all jealous for a little bit.
I love like the Scooby noises he makes.
Yeah, the Scooby guy was great too. He's like I don't think he's voiced Scooby in any other property, but he does it so well.
Yeah, I can't complain. There's so much random shit in this movie, though. Like you said, it feels very cut up, and it's very evident, especially like the scene with all the teenagers that just randomly start attacking like the quads, and they're like, you know, making faces and stuff.
Well, so
like,
after
what
the
hell
monsters
was all
attack,
that?
they take Fred and Velma out of the picture for a little bit, and so it's just Scooby, Shaggy, and Daphne, and they like wake up on the beach, and like all of a sudden it's like everything is normal, everyone's partying. Sugar Ray's there for some reason. How long have they been there? But they're apparently monsters now too.
Yeah, it's a little all over the place, but it's still a great movie. A memorable scene also for me was when they all switched bodies, and
Oh yeah.
does Fred go into Daphne's body and he starts feeling the boobs, or does he just look at them? I forget.
No, he just says that he's gonna look at himself naked later, and then he like pulls the dress and he looks down.
Dude, I guarantee that scene was expanded on in the rated R version.
Well, another thing James Gunn said they did is he said they had them like use computer effects to remove cleavage from so many of the women, because they were like, oh, there's too much cleavage in this movie, which like that's where all the CG money went, not to Scooby and the Monsters, was to removing cleavage from the movie.
That's great.
But yeah, what you said, like the weirdness of it. There's also another scene where after Velma's taken captured, we see her dancing in a bikini, which like I can tell exactly why that scene got cut, is because she's just in a full bikini dancing, and then she like captures Daphne. And you don't see Daphne get turned in the movie at all. She's just like a soul in the bucket at one point. And you never get to see why she just kind of disappears for a bit, and she's just captured already. By the time it gets to the end of the movie, it's a very unceremonious reveal to who's doing it. They just sort of cut away to Emil Monteverus, and he's sort of already explaining his evil plot to Scooby-Doo. Like, there's no real man in the mask moment until a little bit later. This movie's got two reveals later on that Emil Monteverus is actually
Double psych!
Scrappy-Doo.
Psych!
You could say it sort of feels like a cop-out, because Scrappy is not much of a character in the movie. They just show Scrappy in like a flashback where the gang kicks him out of the mystery
Yeah,
machine.
he's peeing on me! He pees all over Daphne. Yeah. He pees all over Daphne. That was awesome. But you're right. It doesn't really feel like it was meant to tell us that he was going to be the main villain. It's kind of just like a meme on the audience, almost.
Yeah, because like it's like they're playing with the idea that everyone hates Scrappy already. So they're like, what if we make the gang hate him too? Like, he's the most annoying, obnoxious character. And they abandon him in the middle of the desert because he sucks.
I remember quoting that scene when I was a kid. Puppy power! I would yell that whenever I took a piss. Probably was like 3 years old.
But yeah, they turned Scrappy into the main villain of this movie, and that's like the only equivalent I can make for that is if they remade Phantom Menace and Jar Jar Binks actually was Darth Sidious the entire time. It's just taking this hated character and being like, yeah, he's the villain, he's evil, that's why.
Yeah, I don't know how well that would go over with the fans. Jar Jar himself was already like the most hated thing ever. I know, dude, one day, if we cover the prequels, it's going to be a gnarly conversation. So, Spooky Island, it was awesome. Another image that comes to mind is the crystal ball. I just saw a meme about it the other day. It's like, what if we kissed under the crystal ball from Scooby-Doo?
There's always viral memes about this movie constantly. Like, every month I see a new one.
You want to move on to Scooby-Doo 2?
I want to say, first off, like, this movie came out and people, like, hated it. They said it was really bad. It wasn't in the spirit of Scooby-Doo. And I think that's wrong. I think this movie perfectly captures Scooby-Doo. And there's a reason, like, both of these are getting reevaluated by our generation. Everyone's, like, bringing them back and saying they're really good. You know, no one's doing that with Bill Murray Garfield or Alvin and the Chipmunks. These movies actually,
yeah, dude,
were good at what they did. They connected with people.
That's a great point. And back in the day, I don't remember anyone our age saying they didn't like the movies. It was all adults.
Mm-hmm.
But Scooby-Doo is made for kids.
People who like the original cartoon were like, this is a little too racy for Scooby-Doo. But then we all watched it. We didn't get the adult jokes, and now we love the adult jokes now that we're grown up.
A lot of movies from the early 2000s, I feel like, were over-criticized.
A big part of that criticism, I think, led to the second movie becoming what it was, because even though the first movie got kind of trashed on by critics, got nominated for Razzies or whatever, it made a shit ton of money, so of course they're going to make a sequel to it. And so they make the second movie, but they go in like a totally different direction. They're like, all right, get rid of all the early 2000s aesthetic bullshit, make it just like a classic Scooby-Doo episode, make it nice spooky haunted house vibes, and that's kind of what they go with. It feels a little more traditional in the Scooby-Doo sense.
I've heard other people make this take, but I honestly agree with it. Spooky Island feels like an episode of Scooby-Doo, and the sequel feels like it should have been the first one, in a way. Like establishing, the setting, establishing the world, the characters in a live action sense. And then the second one would be like they go somewhere else, like Spooky Island. They kind of did it backwards.
I've heard that too. I just think that the first movie already exists in the idea that everyone knows Scooby-Doo, so they're already trying to like redo it all,
Exactly, kind of like what they did with Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Yeah, skip over the origin story, just get to like new stuff.
Yeah, we've already seen it like 100 times, so just get to the fucking meat and potatoes.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo doesn't need an origin story. That's why the Cartoon Network movies are so bad. Those live action movies.
They couldn't even get a blonde Fred. They couldn't even get a blonde
That was
Fred.
Disgraceful.
I don't think those movies were terrible.
Ruined his hair, bleaching it blonde.
Really?
Freddie Prinze Jr. ruined his hair by bleaching it blonde. He had to wear a wig in the second one, and then Robbie Amell couldn't even be bothered to wear a wig. He's like, no, I'm not doing that, man.
Yeah, dude, it's just disrespectful to the whole like franchise as a whole to not be willing to have a blonde Fred. But enough about those pieces of shit. We're never going to talk about the Cartoon Network movies probably ever again.
So the second movie, they open up. They're opening up a museum of all the costumes of different monsters that Scooby-Doo and the gang have unmasked over the years, and they're doing a grand opening for it. And this is where they make all the references to the show. You see all the monsters that you're going to see throughout the movie because they bring them all back in this one. There's like the Tar Monster, 10,000 Volt Ghost, the Pterodactyl Ghost, the Black Knight Ghost. All of them come back, and there's even a few that aren't even used in the movie. The Creeper isn't used in the movie. He's there. They show him like.
Who's the zombie guy then?
He's just a zombie.
I love that guy.
Because he's weird.
Dude, I love the monsters. Honestly, Scooby-Doo 2 really knocked it out of the park with the costumes and the makeup and everything. And I remember once you sent me I think it was on Twitter, like a clip of the monster costumes that they didn't use. And some of them were like disturbingly creepy. So it makes sense why they didn't put them in the movie.
There's this video, we can put up clips of it like next to us, but like there's they show Redbeard, like the pirate ghost. They did have a test costume for the Creeper. They originally planned for the Creeper to be in it. They had like the Tiki Monster. There was a witch, the clown The clown looked really like weird. He was creepy, and I wish all of them were in it. They would have been so cool. I can't. They kind of, what I read was they cut them out because those were practical costumed monsters, and they didn't like those as much as the computer generated ones, like the Tar Monster and the Pterodactyl. So that's kind of why those ones stuck around.
I mean, there was still plenty of practical stuff. It wasn't like all CGI. Minor 49er.
Yeah, but like even the Black Knight Ghost, which you probably could have done in a practical way, he was like mostly computer generated.
I think that on set though there were some practical shots of him, so they did it right. They had practical shots with the CGI because he's sword fighting with Daphne. There's some real shots of armor in that scene, so I can't criticize the CGI because they did it the right way. If it was 100% CGI, then it probably would have looked like garbage.
And right out the gate, we meet the villain of this movie. He's kind of a more traditional Scooby-Doo villain. He's got the weird like chrome mask with the little hair sticking out, and he's a big
Mystery Incorporated.
Yes, he's so. I love this guy. I don't even know what. I don't think he has a name either. He's just the monster.
Chrome Dome. It's also the scene where we meet my favorite character in the whole franchise outside the Scooby-Doo gang, Seth Green.
That's your favorite character of any Scooby-Doo property other than the gang?
No, of the live-action movies. Of the live-action movies. Yeah. Outside of the main gang, he's definitely my favorite character.
Yeah, he's great. He sort of... Yeah, he's used as a suspect too, and like Shaggy and Scooby start to suspect him for a bit, and that scene happens where he just screams at them for no reason.
You know what's another great scene, or another great costume we forgot to mention? The diver. That's another great practical costume. I always liked the diver.
Probably.
Captain Cutler, yes. That was probably my favorite costume as a kid. I always liked like the ocean and like sunken ships and divers and stuff, so I liked him on the cartoon, and it was so cool seeing him come out of the water in that one scene.
Mm-hmm.
So
he's probably my favorite. He's the only one he's the only one I recognized from the cartoons when I was watching this movie. The other ones I didn't really see in anything else, because they're all from different series too. The Tar Monster is from the second iteration of the series. The 10,000 Volt Ghost is from that as well. They reference Chickenstein. Chickenstein's from a pup named Scooby-Doo. He's like an
I was going to bring that up. I was going to say, where the hell is Chickenstein from?
They also had test footage of Chickenstein. They were going to have Chickenstein be actually alive too. And he was going to have these like pun lines. Like he'd be like, how about some Kentucky Fried Scooby?
Let me just say, I like this one way more than the first one. I know some people love Spooky Island, but Monsters Unleashed is definitely my favorite. I watched it way more on repeat. And I think part of the reason for that is because there's so many awesome moments in the movie that I just always go back to watch. For example, when Shaggy and Scooby find the device to make the monsters. Yeah. Like tunage, we're the greatest detectives. We're the greatest detectives.
This has a lot of great Scooby and Shaggy moments that you and I quote a lot. Like Scooby
Check
and Shaggy.
out my pecs, little man.
There's like a moment where Scooby and Shaggy decide they're gonna try and solve it on their own because nobody believes in them. And Shaggy's like, "What should we do now, Scoob?" And Scooby just goes, "Let's solve the mystery." And you and I quote that a little bit too. There's also the toilet brush scene where Shaggy's like, "How are any of these a clue?" And he just starts singing in it.
Just because you like something doesn't mean it's a clue. It just means it's awesome. Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
Once again, full credit to Matthew Lillard just fully committing to the stupidity of this. Like, I saw a lot of, like, he would make jokes about the first movie, be like, "Oh, that ruined my career." But he still showed up for the second one and still gave it his all. So he's, like, a total professional.
What about the faux ghost scene? A quote that I say to Katie all the time. Hello, baby.
The greatest disguises in franchise history. Shizzy
Afro.
McCreepy and his brother, S.D. McCrawley.
Hey! There's just so many great moments. I feel bad for you because of your friend's weird facial deformity. And it's just Scooby.
That's a great scene.
Ready?
I love it.
Be myself. Get ready.
This movie has its own share of supporting characters too. There's Alicia Silverstone as the reporter. I can't remember her name either, but she's in throughout. She has some of the funniest moments too, where she keeps interviewing Fred and she keeps like taking him out of context. And he gets so angry. All Fred Jones had to say was, "Olo Coolsville could solve its problems without us." He's like, "I didn't say that."
You're going to take what I say, and you're going to rearrange it to make me sound like I'm saying, "I think that Coolsville sucks." All Fred had to say was, "I think that Coolsville sucks."
Imagine being like a resident of Coolsville, and you're just watching the news, and you just see all Fred Jones had to say was, "I think Coolsville sucks." What an asshole.
All the names too are really stupid. Like Coolsville. There's Randomonium, the
I think
glowing
Coolsville's
green.
taken directly from one of the series, but yeah, Randomonium's a bit silly.
You know what was really cool, awesome? I love the pterodactyl guy's backstory. I thought that was so cool, the scene where he's at the jail and he's trying to escape.
Yeah, he's in like Alcatraz prison or something. He's in the middle of the ocean on a freaking rock just for dressing up and robbing a bank.
See you, suckers! Help me, suckers!
This movie has a few of those guys where they take characters from the villains from the show, and like Peter Boyle is also supposed to be the original Black Knight ghost, but now he's just a grumpy old man.
Remember that random scene where they show him trying to sell a pyramid scheme?
Yeah.
He's like, if you guys all invest
to his pitch.
Yeah, we can have kids mine, and they'll do work for free, and they'll have the time of their lives mining coal for us.
Yeah, so he's not the villain of this movie, but he's still just a deeply evil man trying to exploit child labor.
Dude, honestly, overall, this movie again, I think it's a little bit more tight than the first one. Like, it makes a little bit more sense.
I don't know if this movie can be called tighter than the first movie, because the first movie's cut to such shit that it's basically like there's like no fat almost in that movie, whereas this movie kind of has the more quiet moments to it.
Let me define that a little bit better then. When I say tighter, I mean the story's kind of locked in, and it's it all makes sense in a way. I wouldn't say tighter as in time constraint, more story, universe, locked in, everything working together is basically what I mean by that.
I think this movie's paced better in general. You have those quieter moments, like where Velma is afraid of Seth Green showing up because she's nervous about talking to a guy, and Daphne just kind of like boosts her confidence a bit, and that leads to the iconic orange leather scene that everyone talks about.
What do you think of the reveal?
I think this movie, it might have a weaker reveal than the first movie, because it's revealed to be Alicia Silverstone as the villain the whole time, which, okay, whatever. It wasn't that effective. But then this movie's got more twists ahead, because she's also not a real person. They pull off her mask, and she is Tim Blake Nelson as the pterodactyl ghost guy. It's a similar reveal to the Scrappy one, where it's a character you only meet in the flashback and assume will not be involved in the story, but then he's the whole villain the whole time.
He stole my tater tots, and he got the lead in My Fair Lady.
And then they revealed that the cameraman was working with her the whole time, and Fred's like, it was also Ned, who is
Ned. Doesn't Daphne say that? I think Daphne says that. Ned. It's like, who the fuck is Ned, dude?
You're right. Is mentioned by name once in the entire movie. She's like, Ned, get my camera. And then you're just supposed to be like, oh yeah, it was him the whole time too, of course.
And what was his motive for helping her?
What'd you say?
I said, and what was his motive for helping her? He goes, we cuddled. So it was really the pterodactyl guy the whole time in a mask. We cuddled.
He was committed to the bit. He was like, I'm gonna get this fucking idiot.
James Gunn's fucked up.
What did they hired the trauma guy, and he made an adult racy movie, and they're like, don't do that. It's like, why did you hire him?
That is right. He's from Trauma. His first movie role ever was Tromeo and Juliet. What did they expect?
Setting themselves up for disappointment when they did that. But yeah, the second movie was similarly reviled when it came out. Like, everyone was just like, this is more of the same, even though it's not. Like we just discussed, it's way different. It goes in a different feel for the second movie, but similarly critically reviled. This one made about 100 million less than the first movie, so a lot less people came back for the sequel to see it. So
I wonder how it did on DVD sales, though.
Movie, probably decently well, but not enough to justify the third movie. There was apparently plans for them to be in Scotland for that one. I don't know many details about what it would have been about, but they just canceled it, not happening, and we haven't had a Scooby-Doo 3 since. But there's been a lot of recent discussion of maybe doing it. I've seen tweets from Matthew Lillard and James Gunn about, oh, maybe if people want it, and they just keep rebooting everything nowadays. So, like, what's to stop them from rebooting live-action Scooby-Doo?
It's kind of bad, though, you know, to think about that they're all so old. Would that mean that Scooby is old, too? That's kind of sad.
No, Scooby is an immortal character. He doesn't
Good.
age.
I'm fine with that. I don't want to see Scooby-Doo, you know, on his last days.
I don't think anybody wants to see it. That'd be the worst thing ever.
Yeah,
the end scene is them euthanizing Scooby-Doo.
No!
I don't know. I think the third movie's not too likely to happen. I've seen Freddie Prinze Jr. say he'll never work with Warner Brothers again because he was the highest paid actor in the first movie, and then the second movie.
And they tried giving him a pay cut for the second one, right?
Yeah, everyone else was like, "All right, we want more money to return for the sequel." So they're like, "Okay, we'll give you more money." And they're like, "Hey, Freddie, can you take less money so we can give them more money?" And he's like, "No, you guys made $300 million. Why can't you afford to pay these guys more money? Go fuck yourselves." So
yeah,
I don't think Freddie has any desire to work with Warner Brothers anymore, especially with how they're being run now, just canceling projects like as they're being filmed. It's not
ridiculous.
a safe studio to work for anymore. Well, I think we talked about both movies a good amount, so we can start talking about them in terms of the Scooby-Doo trademarks and see which one comes out on top.
So what's the first category, Nick?
The first category I have is humor, which both of these movies are really funny. I think this is a very subjective one. I could swing either way on this because I think both of these movies are a total riot.
I think the first movie is more unhinged humor. They're kind of just throwing all these different ideas around. Whereas the second one, it's more, you know, traditional Scooby-Doo, hit you over the head kind of humor. Same kind of silly antics.
I know what you
mean.
Like for the first movie, like the humor in that movie is like, oh, Sugar Ray is chasing down Scooby-Doo and smashing their guitars into the windows to try and get them. And you're just sort of like, what the fuck is happening right now? Whereas the second one has a little more like clever like bits. Like they go to the haunted house and they fall under the into the trap and they're trapped in the ball. And they see also trapped are 2 Jehovah's Witnesses and a little Girl Scout. So that's a little bit of clever humor.
I love how his doorbell is just like, go away. My favorite scene, comedy-wise, is probably the potion scene, though, in the second one.
Oh, where they're, like, transforming.
Yeah. Or Velma's in the leather suit, and she's, like, farting. I swear it's the suit.
Hey, man, the first movie has a farting scene, too, and they were actually farting in that scene.
Oh, no, what about when Scooby shoots fart fire back into Minor 49er, or whatever his name is?
Oh, you're right. Maybe we should have made fart a category in this ranking.
Who has the better fart?
I think the funniest thing for me might be in the first movie, actually, when they're watching the training video, and they're like, here's how this interaction shouldn't happen. And he's like, whoa, sorry, bro. I will crush your bones into dust. And then they're just like, no. Here's how it should have gone. Oh, no big whoop, dog. Did you catch that new vid on the box? True that. I'm up to sniznuff on all popular trends. Word. That shows that movie was self-aware about the early 2000s bizarre lingo. They weren't just like catering to what was popular at the time. They were like, oh, we know what we're doing. We're kind of mocking this early 2000s culture we have right now.
Yeah, I agree. But so who gets the edge then for comedy?
Are you making the case for the second movie is funnier?
For most of the categories, I'd probably pick the second movie. I think this one I'm going to go with a tie. I think they're both funny in unique ways.
Oh man, a tie. Let's circle back around to this if we can, but let's move on for now to the music chase scene, which I'm going to be honest, I don't think the second movie has a traditional music chase scene. They just kind of have score set to the different chase scenes, whereas the first movie has Man with the Hex when they're all running out of the hotel, all the monsters are attacking. That scene's awesome. That feels like a classic Scooby-Doo scene. So many gags. There's like the sandwich he takes. He bites the monster's nails. They like crash out the window in the laundry cart. It's a great scene. It's classic Scooby.
Yeah, that's a great scene. I think I like the second one. Even though there's not a traditional chase scene, there's a ton of awesome action sequences that I think, fill that gap for me. The skeleton scene on the mountainside, running away from the pterodactyl with the flamethrower or the welding torch. The action sequence with Fred on the motorcycle. What is the song in the background?
That's not a chase scene.
But it's awesome. It's an action sequence. That was so badass. Cause I'm wanted. That was awesome. I love that scene. That's probably why I know that song from my childhood, at least.
Discovered Bon Jovi through Scooby-Doo.
Or what about when Daphne kicks the Black Knight Goat in the nuts? I remember being on the playground and quoting that scene with my friends, like, "Oh, right in the wrong tables."
Yeah, that was great. I don't know. I guess I'm more attached to the soundtrack of the first movie because that one, if we're talking about musical chase scenes, that movie just has a better soundtrack overall, in my opinion. And it also introduces the MXPX cover of the Scooby-Doo theme song.
That's what I was just going to bring up. I was going to say, both movies have an MXPX, kind of climax scene with Scooby where he saves the day. And I love the second one where he's surfing down the tar monster, spraying him with the fire extinguisher. That scene's very nostalgic for me. Because I always, loved the pop punk music. And Scooby-Doo, of course. I would say that's probably in my top 20 nostalgic movie moments.
For sure.
I would always rewind that scene.
To the second.
I think I have to. I think there's just so much. I think I have to. I think there's just so much action stuff that I remember that I feel like I have to pick it.
I don't know. I might have to disagree with you here and go with the first movie, but let's see where we fall on the other ones because one movie might sweep the other categories. We'll have to see. So
that's fine. We can have different opinions. We don't have to pick the same one.
We have to have a decision at the end. We can't say both are good movies. No, one has to be a loser. One has to be a winner in this.
Let's see where we go. There's five.
So for number 3, we have the monster category, and I think we're gonna have an easy agreement on this one. I think the second movie clears the first movie.
We didn't even bring up some of the monsters. We didn't even bring up the cotton candy glob, bro. Finally, a monster we can eat.
I would say maybe Doc points off the second movie for lack of originality because they do just take monsters from the show. However, they still have the Mystery Incorporated guy, and he's an all-timer, in my opinion. He's great. He's wonderful. And the first movie doesn't even have that. They just have the weird wolf-looking monsters, and then they have Mecha Scrappy at the end.
Yeah, I honestly think Chrome Dome was pretty creepy to be honest. I remember as a kid kind of being scared of him a little bit.
Really? I wasn't scared of him.
I mean, there was enough in the movie that I wasn't actually scared, but I remember being like, "Whoa, it's a little creepy there." I saw a lot of fucked up shit
great.
When I was a kid because my sisters would always watch horror movies, and sometimes I would walk in and see clips of The Grudge or Halloween. So I'm sure Chrome Dome was nothing compared to that shit,
Well, yeah, he's great. I think I mean, if you took out the monsters even made from the show, I think Chrome Dome just takes the win for the second movie already because he's a lot of fun. He's got personality, and the first movie just doesn't have that. It's kind of lacking in the monster department.
So Edge, Monsters Unleashed. It's in the name.
All right, second to last category we have is suspects, supporting characters, and I could go either way on this one too. The first movie's got a lot of great characters because Spooky Island just feels so alive and weird. You got the voodoo guy, you got Rowan Atkinson, You got the wrestler and the bald man who does the whole show, the live show. And then you got Ela Fisher, Shaggy's girlfriend for the movie. This got a great set of characters, I think.
I think I would pick Spooky Island. I just think there's more randomness to the characters. Like, you really don't know who the main villain is because there's so many of them. Whereas the second one, they're kind of leading you to believe it might be Seth Green or the old man. And I never thought it was Seth Green. It's a too convoluted of a plot to destroy your own museum for me. And the old man obviously wasn't the Black Knight ghost. So I never thought it was him either.
Yeah, and they have Alicia Silverstone too, the reporter, and she's I mean, other than the gags with Fred, she's not that good, I don't think.
Yeah. I do love the pterodactyl ghost guy, but like you said earlier, he's only in that one flashback scene and then the very end.
Much.
Yeah. So
yeah,
as far as suspects,
maybe the first movie wins this one because Seth Green's the strongest one the second movie has, and does he really compare to the voodoo guy?
No, the voodoo guy was way more like a potential suspect, even though he seemed completely innocent. But that's what makes you think. It's like, is he innocent?
You just think he's crazy because he's sacrificing a dead chicken already he bought from the grocery store, plucked it already, and he's gonna cut into it and sacrifice it.
I don't know. Seth Green just never struck me as a bad guy. I love that scene too, where Velma has to trust him. There's a lot of great moments in the sequel. Velma has to trust him.
Oh, for sure.
Because she's falling off the cliff. Yeah.
Wow. So
I need your hand,
give this
Velma.
one.
You gotta give it to me.
I guess Scooby-Doo 1 wins the suspects and supporting characters category.
All right, so we'll give it to the first Scooby-Doo.
And then we have the final category, the overall mystery to each one. And do you have an opinion one way or the other?
I mean, the mystery to me is way cooler in the sequel because it's like, who's bringing these monsters back to life and using them to attack the city? I think that's a more interesting plot. It might have not had the better payoff to who the villain actually was in the end, but to me, the plot is just more interesting. Like, remember that scene where the ghost pirate ship's flying over the city and the tar monster's freezing everybody's car? That scene is just like, what's going on? How the hell are they going to beat this bad guy?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the first movie also has the Damon Rightus. It has a lot of cool like sets and production aspects with the big like triangular like shrine that they're holding it in for Scrappy to summon the powers of Satan with. He's got this little device that like takes the souls out of people. It's really bizarre. But what was his plan?
I don't know.
What's Scrappy's plan? Just to destroy Mystery Inc. and run a theme park?
Remember when the Black Knight ghost attacks the live news?
Sorry, you're canceled. James Gunn predicted his own cancellation.
Oh my god. What about the scene where the zombie guy throws up all over the news reporter?
That was fun.
I love that too.
His pants fall down?
No, Scooby surfs under him and pulls his pants down.
That was great.
Yeah, dude, I think I have to go with the second one.
I think you're right. I think as far as a mystery goes, they do a better job at like making you question different people. So, like, I mean, you do question Seth Green pretty hard when there's that random shrine to the pterodactyl ghost. And you're just like, this is fucking weird.
Yeah, what the hell was that scene? That looked like something out of like Halloween 5. Like the set.
No, I know what you mean. But yeah, why was that made there? That wasn't actually his, was it?
I don't think so. I think he said he was looking for the ghost.
So the Jonathan Jacobo made his own shrine?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, well, we'll give the edge of mystery to the second movie. I think wins it out pretty fairly. So when we look at our 5 categories here and what we voted for humor, we kind of gave it a tie. Both are really funny movies, so that's kind of a point for each movie. Music Chase, we kind of disagreed. I said the first movie, you said the second movie. So 1 point goes to both movies in this one. Monster, though, we were in total agreement on the second movie because wider range of monsters, more diverse. Suspects, we both agreed the first movie takes the cake there. That's only category so far where the first movie completely won out. And Mystery, we both agree the second movie. So if you tally up the votes, it's a pretty easy win for Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed as the better Scooby-Doo movie.
Hell yeah.
Well, there you have it. Scooby-Doo 2. The best of the live-action Scooby-Doo movies. Don't even take the Cartoon Network ones into consideration. They're not real. They don't exist.
Yeah, fuck those movies.
Is there anything you have to add, Paul, to wrap this up? To anything else you want to say about Scooby-Doo in general?
I mean, they're both amazing movies, and I'm sure one day when I have kids, they're probably going to be one of the first movies I show them. And that's cool, because there's so many movies that I love that I probably won't be able to show my kids until they're a little bit older. But Scooby-Doo is one of those day one. You know, I watched this when I was a kid, and you're going to love it too when you're a kid. And the whole family could have fun watching. Just like that famous clip of Daphne talking, Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's saying, you know, it wasn't a boys' show, it wasn't a girls' show, it was an everyone's show. It's really true what she said. You know, everyone can enjoy Scooby-Doo. I mean, it's a talking dog. Like, what else do you need?
I love Freddie Prinze Jr. He's a weird guy. Have you seen that other clip of him where he's like, it's great American literature. It should be taught in schools. Like
Scooby-Doo?
It's literally, yeah. Like I appreciate the enthusiasm, Fred, but it's literally not literature. That's just not what literature is, bro.
It's not literature.
But yeah, I love these movies too. I've been so like it's warmed my heart seeing these become beloved again as people from our generation have grown up. People still loving them. People still watching them every year. Because they're just a blast. They're a vibe. The first movie's kind of feels like a party, early 2000s style, and the second one's got those nice, cozy, spooky vibes. So they're both just great, fun additions to the Scooby-Doo canon, Scooby-Doo franchise, and that's why they've stuck around, and other movies have not.
I couldn't agree more. Is there anything that you're currently working on that you want to promote or talk about for a couple minutes?
I'm working on different things myself. I'll keep those under wraps until they become more concrete and stuff. But how about you? What are you working on?
Did you see the Spy Kids video that I made?
I scrolled past that and I saw a little bit of it. What even was that?
So I have this friend named Phil, aka Confusion. I met him through wrestling, and he makes really good music. You know, he makes rap songs. One day we were hanging out at wrestling, and he asked me, hey, would you ever want to make a song together? And I was like, fuck yeah, I want to make a song. And we made Modern Art. And through making Modern Art, Phil kind of showed me the basics of how to make a song and how to use this editing software. I was hanging out with my other friend Josh recently, and he's a musician as well, and he wanted to make a song. So we were trying to think of a topic, and ever since we first became friends, a consistent meme that we've had has been Spy Kids related stuff. Making jokes about, like, the guy, Junie Cortez, flew, Donovan giggle. Why don't we just do a song about Spy Kid? We tried to include all the major memes that we've made jokes about. I think it came out pretty well. You should check it out.
Awesome, I will. So there's more songs coming out, too?
Yeah, not to spoil anything, but there's some more songs in the pipe that I made with Confusion. And we're going to be making more songs in the future for a potential other project.
Awesome. Well, this was fun. I always love talking about Scooby-Doo and talking about different stuff. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time when we talk about Scooby-Doo WrestleMania Mystery.
No! If you did make it to the end of this podcast, we appreciate you, and we're looking forward to more episodes soon. So if you haven't already, subscribe, like, share with your friends. I think that's it for today, Nick.
All right.
Have a good day, everyone.